Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins with a high-speed chase, as two criminals dressed in clown costumes attempt to cross into Mexico. One is injured in the backseat, bleeding over a bag of cash. The escape car swerves off the road, approaching the border, while the driver accelerates along the wall, looking for any way to get to the other side. The burglars are being pursued by Mexican Federal Police and the U.S. Border Patrol, as they attempt to jump over the wall from a ramp. When the automobile crashes and lands on Mexican soil, the chase comes to an end. Officer Vasquez of the Mexican Federal Police and Bill of the United States Border Patrol both agree, the offenders will be apprehended by Americans. When Vasquez notices a sack of cash in the back seat, he has a shady deal with Bill, and uses it as leverage to get him to hand over the criminals. As a result, the American Border Patrol departs empty-handed, while two unknown cowboys observe from a safe distance. Vasquez employs modern Mexican police methods on the motorist, but is unable to determine who he is. Let's refer to the driver as Gringo, because he doesn't divulge his real identity. Vasquez and his associate, Romero, accept the money and book Gringo, who successfully provides them with unreadable fingerprints. They transport him to a holding facility once he's been processed, an overcrowded violent cesspool, where the offenders are armed, and there appear to be no regulations. Soon after, a gang of convicts attack him, attempting to steal his shoes, and brutally abusing him. Following that, the detainees are greeted by the warden, who informs them that they will be taken to the main prison, El Pueblito. Soon, an American consulate officer Jack arrives, and asks about the American prisoner, to which he replies they'll chat later and sort things out. Even though this is not Gringo's first time in jail, he is perplexed when they transport him to Gen Pop. There are stores, food carts, tattoo parlors. He notices the man who attacked him in jail while scanning the prison, and follows him. Gringo shoves his legs out of the bathroom, and knocks him unconscious, after making sure they're alone. He snatches his gun and belongings, concealing the gun in a bathroom stall, and flees with his money and a high-end watch. He then goes back to the courtyard, where the inmates are strewn on the filthy ground, and falls asleep. The detainees are transported to work at the prison's recycling facility the next day, where Gringo is restrained by several armed guards, as a nurse draws blood for an undisclosed experiment. Later, he spots a guy in a bathrobe and two of his men in a penthouse. He realizes they are most likely in charge of this location. In this small town, he learns that money can buy you some independence. To begin, he relieves the guards for a quarter, and takes the day off to do what he excels at. Gringo makes his way through the crowd, and discovers his first project, the money stashed in the drug den. He steals a can of cooking oil and uses it to set fire to a food cart, effectively distracting the audience, while leaving the money unguarded. He is able to steal the money, and depart as everyone hurries to put out the fire. A 10-year-old approaches him as he watches the cart burn, and asks for a smoke. When Gringo refuses, the child discloses that he witnessed him take the money, and threatens to report him if he doesn't. The boy lives in prison with his mother, and claims to be special. He also says that anyone with enough money can live inside the prison with their family, which means non-inmates are free to come and go as they like. While they're getting to know each other, the child's mother sees him smoking, and rushes him home. Following that, Jack pays Gringo a visit, in order to assist him in escaping from prison. Gringo, as usual, provides him with a bogus identity and backstory, while saying he did nothing wrong. Jack questions his narrative, and feels he's a professional crook, citing how he burned out his fingerprint. They can't work together because of the dishonesty, so they split off, with Gringo planning his own escape, and Jack pledging to find out the truth about him. Gringo leases a small cubicle from Carnal, the prison's real estate agent. Later at night, the prison king throws a lavish party for special inmates, complete with stunning party girls. Gringo looks through the window, and sees the warden among the inmates, but it's the Mexican child's mother who takes him by surprise. She almost shares a moment with Gringo, before approaching him and hitting him right in the jaw. The next morning, an inmate is shot dead in the courtyard, for trying a prison break, demonstrating that escape is not an option. When the child approaches Gringo, they discuss how the child's mother works for Javi, the prison king. He also informs that Caracas, Javi's brother, and Carnal, his cousin, are Javi's henchmen. Javi has a contract with the authorities, and can leave whenever he wants, but even the prison king must return to do his term. When he questions the child about the word special he mentioned earlier, and the blood sample they obtained from him, the child is unable to answer. Meanwhile, Jack is looking for Officer Vasquez and his partner, in order to learn more about the case. He discovers them floating around a whorehouse amid ladies, which makes him suspicious. On the visiting day, the child is fighting with another child, while their peers cheer them on. Javi and Caracas approach, and Javi instructs the latter to have the child's back. Gringo notices the boy removing a shank from his clothes, and follows them, ostensibly to kill Javi as they walk away. Gringo talks him out of it, wondering why he would want to kill the man. After an emotional exchange, the child discloses that Javi murdered his father, in order to steal his liver. Javi has an extremely uncommon blood type, so rare that they test all the inmates for compatibility, and so far, the kid and his father are the only matches. This is why the boy is remarkable. Javi looks after him so that he can use his liver when a new one is required. The impound yard with Gringo's escape car is Jack's next trip. He discovers two cowboys from the beginning of the movie rummaging through the automobile for their stolen money. They draw a pistol at him at first, but he can convince them to pay a decent amount in exchange for knowing where the money is. Later, Javi hosts a wrestling match, which Gringo and the youngster attend. The kid's mother arrives too, and invites Gringo to a beer, but the prison officer interrupts and informs Gringo that he has a guest. Officers Vasquez and Romero have arrived to figure out where the money came from, and who it belongs to. They attempt to terrify him into speaking, but Gringo reminds them they are the ones in danger, and must go quickly. The next day, Gringo and the youngster arrange a plan to bait Javi's henchmen, which include Carnal and his pal Carlos. The child walks past them, flaunting the previously stolen watch. When Carlos notices it, he chases the youngster into the alleys. Gringo seizes the opportunity and pickpockets Carnal. Later, the kid's mother invites Gringo in for a beer. They alternate recounting anecdotes about their former partners. Gringo describes how he lost his wife to his business partner, Reginald Barnes, and how Barnes testified against Gringo in court, and sentenced him to prison. He goes on to narrate a recent dream in which two men knock on Reginald's door and murder him. In response, she tells the story of her late husband and child's Bambi blood, a 1 in 500 million blood type. Gringo promises to look after her child. Meanwhile, Caracas goes to Carnal to collect the true state's salary, and finds him drugged out of his wits. He tells Caracas that someone took the money, but his terrible image as an addict outweighs his accusations, putting him in a difficult position: either retrieve the money, or lose his job. He embarks on a drunken rampage in search of the child, accompanied by Carlos. Carnal storms into their home and brutally beats him, while his mother sobs helplessly. When he is unable to locate his money, he decides to assault the woman. Meanwhile, Gringo is lounging in the courtyard, when Carlos inquires about him. He understands everything has gone wrong and sprints towards the toilets and the hidden revolver. He fumbles around in his hiding place and shoots the man. Caracas, on the other hand, arrives on schedule and brings Carnal to a halt. As the situation worsens, they fight, and Carnal manages to defeat him, knocking him to the ground and getting ready to execute him. Gringo then saves Caracas, the child, and his mother, and is transported to a holding cell. Javi charges in with a loaded gun, and Gringo explains how he saved Javi, Caracas, and the child who was so important to them. When Javi finds the man aware of the liver, he decides to spare him and learn more about him. Later, Gringo receives a phone call from Jack, who offers to help him retrieve the money before it's too late, in exchange for a cut of the proceeds. Instead, Gringo tracks down Caracas, and informs him that Vasquez and Romero have stolen $2 million from him. He tricks Caracas into returning his money, and requests only 10% of it, reasoning that having his money in Javi's hands is preferable to losing it all. Unfortunately for Caracas, the money's owner, Frank Fowler, has already obtained the corrupt cop's contact information, thanks to Jack. The officers are being held captive by the two cowboys from earlier. Frank claims there were $4 million, but his men only discovered $1.7 million and 2 automobiles outside. Javi's men arrive just as they are ready to kill Vasquez, killing everyone and seizing the money. On the other hand, Jack buys off the prison guards on Frank's behalf, so that they will protect his men. Gringo, the kid, and his mother are ambushed in the prison yard by 3 cowboys. Gringo begins fighting back, killing 2 of the soldiers and the guard above. The final cowboy throws a grenade at him, but he returns it in mid-air, and blows him up. They somehow survive the carnage that many others did not. After that, Javi threatens to kill Gringo if he doesn't reveal the truth about himself. Gringo announces himself as Reginald Barnes this time. Since they both know Frank would not give up his money, Gringo offers to go and kill him in exchange for his freedom. Javi agrees, advising him to keep away from the child and his mother. After dealing with Frank, Javi grants Gringo a driver's license, and sends 2 hitmen to kill him. Soon, the warden informs Javi that the government plans to close the prison, due to the earlier shooting. He consults Caracas for a moment, and because he has been feeling frail recently, and will almost certainly require a liver transplant soon, he decides to go forward with the procedure before it's too late. Gringo gets through border police with a phony ID, and finds work as a cheap secretary. He contacts shipping magnate Thomas Kaufman, and claims to be Clint Eastwood, to set up a meeting. Following that, he tails Javi's hitman and stuffs a cheeseburger in their car's muffler. When they pull over to investigate, he executes them instantly. Meanwhile, the child's mother watches with dread as Javi's doctor pays him a visit, hinting that the transplant is close. She hurries over to her friend's house, conceals the child in a wall hole, and instructs him to remain there until everything blows over. Soon, Javi's men arrive and tie her up in a gloomy holding chamber. They abuse her mercilessly in order to shatter her spirit. As she struggles to maintain awareness, she notices her child has arrived to save her. He stands a few feet away from Javi, clutching a sharp shank in his hand, and stabs himself in the liver several times, in the hopes of saving his mother. They rush him to the nurse's station in order to preserve his liver. They decide to undertake the surgery later at night, once his health is stabilized. Elsewhere, Gringo is working on his proposal. He calls Frank's representative, and asks whether he may do business with Frank, to lure him out of hiding, while impersonating Kaufman. After some thought, the representative determines that meeting with such a successful entrepreneur is worthwhile, and he agrees to meet him the next morning at Kaufman's office. Later, he convinces Frank to let Kaufman in on his narcotics deal. The next morning, Gringo comes to the meeting with an umbrella, identifying himself as Reginald Barnes, his betraying ex-partner, and pretending to be Clint Eastwood's assistant. He knocks out Mr. Kaufman and locks him in the bathroom, after notifying the secretary that Mr. Eastwood and two associates are on their way. When Frank and his representative arrive, the secretary misidentifies them as associates, and permits them in. Gringo then distracts them with a wall painting, before dropping two explosives right under their feet and guaranteeing their deaths. He flees as sprinklers force him to use his umbrella, and Kaufman's secretary discovers him alive. Gringo needs to tie off one final loose end with Jack, before returning the money. He discovers him inebriated and having a crazy time with strippers. Gringo binds him to a chair and begins questioning him. It doesn't take much to get him talking. He quickly admits that Javi is having surgery, and the prison will be closed that night, which means he won't see his money again if he doesn't shake a leg. After discovering the location of his crashed automobile, he snatches the latter's rifle and badge, and hurries out of the room. In a flurry of armed vehicles prepared to enter, about 200 military and special operations teams have assembled at El Pueblito to dissolve the prison. As the military swarms inside, riots erupt. Javi is undergoing surgery, while Caracas and his men defend the surgical room. Gringo arrives using Jack's badge, and attempts to find Javi. With battles breaking out in every area of the prison, it won't be easy. When he finds the cash bags in one of the buildings, he is forced to make one of the most difficult decisions of his life: take the money and flee, or stay and save the child. After some deliberation, he chooses the second choice, and rushes to the surgery room. Caracas tries to stop him, but Gringo sneaks inside, just as they're ready to extract the child's liver. He threatens to kill Javi if Caracas does not bring the mother. One of the nurses pulls a gun on Gringo, pretending to capture him, allowing Gringo to shoot Caracas and his guards. They rush the kid into an ambulance, but not before Gringo collects his money. They flee in disguise as medics in the ambulance, leaving Javi to die. Gringo retrieves the remaining $2 million stashed in his car at the impound yard. They flee to a lovely beach, where they live a carefree lifestyle. Kaufman eventually tracks down and kills the actual Reginald Barnes, fulfilling Gringo's fantasy, and establishing his utopia. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.